Let me have a sip. Oh. That tastes good. Well, everyone, I come to you today with such a heavy heart. Kaye here on my homestead in Tennessee, where I moved back to Tennessee primarily to be within driving distance to see my mother, who was gradually declining. As you probably know, she passed away November the 30th at 4:24 in the morning, and her funeral was just to her wishes a week later in our hometown. And I haven't talked much about that, just trying to figure out what to say. How do you even comment on the person that is your hero, that's been there since your first breath? But anyway, then I lost my 20-year cat on the 17th, 10 days after the funeral, and so I'm still in mourning. And then this happened yesterday. Now, I have no skin in the game, so to speak. I don't own property in California anymore, but I have friends and neighbors there that I care about. And they've lost everything. Not everything. They haven't lost their lives. But in 25 years of living there, and you know, because I was an actor and I was basically worked out of my house, and then I started the YouTube channel. So I was there. I was doing a lot of running around, but I was there. And I don't remember in 25 years, but one time that I came out and saw smoke coming over that, you know, when you come out of the front of my house, there's a big hill over there. There's several roads that work their way up into the mountains. Of course, this is the problem is a lot of these houses are very close to wild areas. Of course, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing and all of that, and blaming and even politicizing, and I hope that doesn't happen. I just wanted to comment on the fact that there are all sorts of real people that live there, that maybe even grew up there. They really don't know, you know, much else or have another place to go to. For example, one of my neighbors on my street, I got to know my neighbors on my block very well. Oh, and by the way, I just checked the fire map from the county website, which was updated at 4:39 a.m. I just have to show you this. Only the baseball field didn't burn. You see that dark area? And all of this goes over to the town of the Palisades and goes up in the mountains, down to the ocean. It's all burned. Guess where I lived? I lived right there. My street was 2 blocks long. It had a big name for a short street, Miami Way. There are 2 blocks, and 1 block, according to this, didn't burn. And so all of these people in that kind of island there, can you imagine? I mean, of course they're going to be relieved that they don't have to build a new house, but to see all of that gone all around you, it would be just horrible. Especially people who have been there a long time. You know, they've got long, deep relationships with their neighbors. So my heart is broken. Even though I'm not there, and it's not my property, it's not my loss, financial loss. Still heartbreaking. And you know, I know people in the 1 block that didn't burn. I just found out yesterday from this happening. I mean, I did nothing from 4 o'clock day before yesterday, all yesterday, just not just staring at the map, because they don't update it very often, They said it was an active fire, so I assumed this would be consumed, this strip would be consumed as well. But according to this, it hasn't been. You know, a lot of people still live in their parents' home because they can't afford to have a home. This is true all over the place, not just in, you know, this more rich area, if you want to call it that, of Los Angeles. But, you know, there's a man that still lives in his mother's home and works out of there. So he spent the first night there. I got in touch with him. I used to pay him to take me to the airport. That was a service that he did, and it was great. Very clean pickup truck to the airport. Anyway, I got in touch with him, and he spent the first night there, and I know it was all mandatory evacuation, so he said he was going to try to get back in there as soon as he could, but for 25 years, there's never been a fire in our neighborhood. And so I understand why my neighbor just, you know, she saw the smoke coming over the hill, and she left to go to Westwood to her husband's office. They went to a hotel, but she didn't take stuff. She just got out because she figured she'd be going back, and they'd put it out, and she left her cats, and so she was very worried about her cats and tried to get in yesterday afternoon, and the police wouldn't let them in the area. So at any rate, for those of you who are new to my channel, I became a gardener in 2011. The end of 2011, I planted my first lemon and orange tree. I didn't even record the event other than a little snapshot, because we had just gotten the little selfie cell phones. The first one, it was a 3 or something, an iPhone 3 maybe, I don't remember. And I remember taking a picture of Renee, and Renee had done some work for me in the yard, which was this big, because he worked in the neighborhood. And so he would bring in Eric. So if you used to watch my channel, you know Eric came to work for me one day a week. And so I remember hiring both of them to take out this little patch of grass that I had in the front yard. And I took like one shot of them bending over. I didn't record it at all. I didn't document it. I really am a documentarian channel because I enjoy documenting what I do and teaching along the way. But I'm not a straight up teacher that just has the beautiful commercial kitchen and every pot looks like they just took it out of the package. Everything's well lit and the countertops are cleaned off. That's not my life. So you get to know your neighbors, and there was like this pack of old dudes that lived around, you know, on my neighborhood. There was Mr. Ed, who lived on this side, and he had lost his wife some years before and remarried. So Mr. Ed and his wife lived in one of those little, when the whole neighborhoods were developed out there, it was like bean fields, and they laid them out. Let's see. Oh yeah, they laid the lots out like right before World War II or something, and then they just sat there because nobody had any money. I sort of became a student of the Palisades, or specifically my neighborhood, because it was interesting to me, because on this side I had an older man who had bought 2 lots side by side, so he had double the space we had, which was about 5,700 square feet. So I'm sure any of you that are in small neighborhoods, you can relate to that size. That's kind of a typical size. 50 in the front, and then you go 100 or 57, whatever it was. My 5,000 square foot garden down in the lower part of my yard, all of my house and my garden would have fit into that. And I had it all measured out exactly, the spaces, and I utilized the space between the sidewalk and the street. And all of that was planted, but it started out with that orange tree and that lemon tree that Renee helped me plant. Now I got Renee, like I said, from the old guys. He worked for some people around. And, oh yeah, CL across the street from me was an old guy. He had lost his wife a long time before, and he was a kind of a hermit, and definitely a hoarder, and used everything, picked up everything that looked useful. We had a great relationship. And then to the right of me was Mr. Gerber. He had lost his wife a long time before, and he was declining and declining. We finally had to take the spark plugs out of his Ford Taurus wagon, I think is what it was, because he kept getting a little fender bender here and there. But I was the one that would go over there and make sure he was getting food. When you're in your upper 80s, you don't necessarily take a shower every day or go in there and make yourself a meal. So anyway, just I have so many memories from my personal experience there. Yeah, Renee was helping me out, and at some point I asked Renee if he knew a housekeeper, because I was very busy doing stuff, and I had a dark room, and I was photographing parties, and I mean anything to make some money, And so I was busy doing that, and I said, if I could just get a housekeeper one day a week, boy, it would really free me up. Man, that's what I could really use here. But he said, yeah, my wife. So that became Denora, who is like part of my family. And if you watch my channel for a long time, you saw her. She would be scraping out the passion fruit, making passion fruit juice. She didn't want to be on camera, but once in a while I managed to get her doing something, and like she made stuffed fried squash flowers. When I was growing squash, like on the side of my driveway up the wall. I mean, anyway, Denora is like family. So I called her on night before last, and we were talking about how horrible it was, and she told me about this harrowing escape, I guess you'd call it. What is absolutely remarkable is that I haven't heard of hardly any loss of life. And this, you're talking about thousands and thousands of people having to be evacuated. And as I went to sleep last night, Hollywood Hills was breaking out and there were evacuations. So last night it was 18,300 acres they were reporting that's been involved in the fire, in the Palisades fire, not the county, is what I understand from this. 17,234 acres. If you recall, Stan and Linda, who invited me to they were just trying to reach out to me, and they invited me to their annual Father's Day camping trip up into the mountains. Remember when I went up there? I did a whole series of videos of the trip, and camping and making pancakes on the grill, the whole thing. I'll put the link right up there if you're interested in going back and taking a look at that. But I've been in touch with Stan, and they lived across the street from me, just down a little, but they sold and got all the financial stuff. They sold and left before I did. And they went into a rental house. So I am not clear on whether they were still in the rental house or bought a house in these 4 years I've been gone. But the house they were living in did burn down. And everybody on my block. And I learned yesterday that the Zimmermans, this is a wonderful couple, and they were quite old when I lived there. And I didn't actually have an official goodbye. But I learned that they're still alive and living down in the corner, and I'm just going, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I just assumed they were not even, that they were gone. They do have a daughter in the area, so maybe, but it's just you lose everything. And then the people beside me, they were in the big house with the one daughter who she appeared in some of my early videos. And of course, Zachary, people yesterday asked me about Zachary and the Korean family that lived on the right side of me. Well, they moved to San Francisco. She got a job with UC San Francisco. So they actually left soon before I did. They have already sold that house. They rented it for a while. They sold that house. And she was very upset. Our hearts are wrapped up in our life experiences, especially the place where you raise your children. You're in schools, you meet lots of moms in schools and dads, but it's mostly moms interacting in schools. And even though you may not be best friends, you know each other and you care. And every single school, every single school that my son Will went to, oh gosh, I don't know if Calvary Christian burned. I didn't hear that burned. I hope not. The whole area is burned, so I don't know. But if you saw on the news, that's the road where the big dozer came and dozed off all the cars. What a mess. I can't fathom how that all happened, because that's a nice wide 2-lane road coming down from the mountain, but it's just one road up, one road down. So it got blocked, and they had to get emergency vehicles up there, and that's what they did. They crunched up all those cars. So yeah, you get so wrapped up in looking back. Is the point I'm getting around to is, especially if you're a mom and you're involved in all the school stuff, and I was like the photo mom, at Calvary, and one of my sons, Walker, was there for 6 years, and so I knew all the parents involved in the schools. But anyway, the other schools, Seven Arrows burned, Marquez Public Elementary burned, Corpus Christi Catholic school, grade school and church burned, the library, the recreation center. The library and the recreation center were rebuilt when I lived there. The whole area where Starbucks, all those, the yogurt shop, all the cafes, the restaurants gone, gas stations gone. I mean, it looks like, a bomb was dropped or something. And it's going to be very strange for people who houses survived to go back in there. So anyway, I can't talk forever. I could talk forever, believe me, because I had such a great relationship with all these old guys that lived on my street, from Mr. Gerber to Gene, who became my pal. He was 3 days younger than my mother, and he passed in November of 19. His wife was younger, and they had gone back to live in her birth house where she grew up in the Palisades. So that burned. So I don't know where she'll be going. It's just devastating for so many people. And now there are other areas, so it's not just, but this is the area where I lived and I cared so much about it, and where I started my garden. And I had so many great experiences there. And the difference, people have asked me, well, do you miss California? Well, there's certain things I do not miss about California, fire being one of them, and earthquakes. It's very different when you change from an urban gardener, because you're having this urban experience, and your whole point of having a front yard garden, this is what I used to say, as opposed to a backyard garden, I had to, for the way our property was there, it was all shaded in the back, so the only sun was in the front yard. But I thought this is a great teaching opportunity, because people walk up and down the street. They come from that neighborhood and they walk over there to go down to the bluffs, lots of dog walkers, and people would and I had guava trees on this side of the sidewalk, and I had fig trees and all this other stuff on this side, and so there was always room for engagement, and teaching and inspiring people, and so that I miss, because I just sort of assumed that every time I'd be down in my garden, somebody would pull over and go, "Hey, what you growing? What you got going?" But when you go to the country where a lot of people have gardens, they know what you're growing. You're growing the same stuff everybody else grows here. You're not growing anything exotic, because it won't grow here. Oh, unless you had a big greenhouse, which, I don't have any flat area, so believe me, I wish I had a greenhouse. That was the beauty of it, and I expected, to be here when I have this big garden down there, that people be just pulling up and going, "Hey, what you got growing?" And that doesn't happen. It's like only maybe 2 people in 4 years have stopped And of course my neighbor, we have a relationship, so he does, and my other neighbors, but only about 4 neighbors, would stop and say hello. And so it's so different. It's a different sharing experience. All the sharing I do is through my channel. That's why I'm always asking you to share with other people, because I don't get any foot traffic here. It's the country. I knew that, because I wanted more space, and I wanted to be near my mother. Now my mother's passed on, so I need to be looking forward instead of back. My friend said last night, Kaye, you have to look forward, because I've been so looking back, with the decline and passing of my mother. And then Lyndon, it hit me. My son Walker was at home for 18 years. I had Lyndon for 20. Anyway, I've been doing a lot of looking back, and I need to look forward and start getting myself together. I was talking to Denora yesterday, and she was crying. She was telling me this harrowing story of she went out because she had another friend, wonderful friend. She had 2 houses, and Denora, she was looking for a housekeeper, and Denora, I sent Denora to her, and they have been together ever since. She loves her like family. She loves me like family, but she loves them like family too. And she was there day before yesterday, and she went out and saw, because she's farther up the mountain, and saw the smoke coming over. And she went inside, Miss Chris, there's smoke, and it hadn't burned in the Palisades in 25 years. So, you don't always think, oh my gosh, And so it took her a minute to get her thinking, we've got to get out of here. And she's got Cindy. I'm not sure of the relationship. This happened after I left, but Cindy is like family to Chris now, and Cindy and her husband, she's now had 2 babies, and they live in one of her houses, and then Chris and her daughter after college lived with her, but her daughter has moved out. And so Cindy works for Chris as an archivist or something, and then her husband has a job out, and the 2 babies are in 2 schools in the Palisades. And Sunset was just jammed. People spent 5 hours going 5 blocks to get out of the neighborhood. Meanwhile, Renee, they live over, in West LA, and he's waiting on Denora so they can get out. He's waiting on El Medio, and which is where he stores his tools, okay? So when you live in LA, and you're a gardener, and there are many, obviously, they have all these tools. And they usually drive these the little gray Toyota pickup trucks. And you leave your tools in the truck, they're going to be gone. So they live in an apartment in West LA. It's not a great neighborhood. And so he had an arrangement with one of his clients in the Palisades, in our El Medio flats, to leave all his tools in her building. And so I was talking to him last night, and I said, well, if this is still accurate, he told me exactly which house it was, and I could see the house. I couldn't see the current state of the house because the Google Maps haven't updated for the burns yet, but I said it's within the burn area, so it's probably burned, which means $3,000 worth of tools, because he had backups for everything. So he's got no tools, and he's 63, and all the people he worked for, their houses have burned. So, I can't help but get emotional thinking about what they're going to do, because she was just working part-time. She had both her knees replaced, and she's just working part-time as a housekeeper. So, and now, and she mainly worked for Chris, who doesn't have a house. And so it impacts not only people it impacts a lot of people who work for the people who live there, and just think of the schools and the businesses, and It's really sad. But there's so many things that are sad in this world, so many things that are unjust and that are happening, and it could get even crazier. You know, every day it's something else, so we have to look forward. I wanted to end by reading this text I got from Stan this morning when I got up. And he very often, he's a strong Christian, and he very often will leave a scripture when he texts me. And so I was very concerned about all my friends over there, former neighbors, many of which have passed on. You know, all the old guys that lived on my street, hung out on my street, are all gone. It was a great time in my life, and I was very close to, I made an effort to get to know the people in my neighborhood. If you remember Hazel, I did a fabulous, I'll put the video up there, a fabulous video. She's from England, and then also lived in Australia. Her husband's Australian actor who, you know, they wound up living in my neighborhood. We met because they walked by my garden. She was wonderful. She's the one that took care of me when I had a broken shoulder and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't eat, I couldn't cook, I couldn't type, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move my arm. Like I was able to touch my nose 2 months after getting a comminuted fracture, and she would ring my doorbell at 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. with a tray covered, and there would be a hot meal, and all I would have to do is just eat it with my left hand. I mean, it looks like, I'm just almost afraid to say, because it's just this one little thing that didn't burn, really. But anyway, if it's true, then her house is still there, and that would be a miracle. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm just kind of going down that road, looking back, and what I have to do now is to look forward and to try to figure out where my focus is going to be. And you know, this week I expected to be putting out a bunch of sewing videos. I just got started on that. You have no idea how many clothes that I could do videos. I could do videos for weeks on just clothes and patterns. And if you can believe, I got so into it. This was the night before the fire, with my friend Jamie, who loves to sew. She has a good sewing machine, and she's got some patterns, and she's just wanting to figure out which ones to make, and she has some fabric. Night before last, I was up late I found this website that has this wonderful fabric, and I'm looking at fabric and pattern, and I'm going, Kaye, are you kidding me? You can't sit down and make a dress. You've got to clean up your house. Just what you see is clear, but nothing else is. So a sunroom's not bad, but man, I have so much work to do here to kind of be able to move forward. So I was hoping to get a lot of that done this week, and I have spent the last 36 hours just hyper focused on the fire, getting in touch with people, and expressing my concern and so forth. So here we go. So this is what Stan said. And I heard a lot of people yesterday going, it's just stuff. You know, their whole house burned to the ground, and they're going, it's just stuff. We're safe. We'll recover. We'll be okay. And I think a lot of that has to do with faith. That's my personal opinion. But in this case, it definitely is the case. And Stan writes and says, thank you so much for your love and concern, Kaye. We are safe and grateful we got out of our home before it was destroyed by the fire. It was all just stuff. Other than the photos, videos, and sentimental items. And then he writes, Isaiah 26:3. He will keep in perfect peace all this who trust in him, whose thoughts turn often to God. So, we will be in perfect peace, and we will move on from this, and I will continue to make new memories here. There'll just be different memories, different kind of memories. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. And I know you've seen me in tears a few times lately, but it just, it's the season of loss, but guess what? Also gain. I have 2 grandchildren, 2 granddaughters. So one of which I haven't seen yet, but I have so much to look forward to, and I hope you do too. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed catching up with Kaye, even though it's talking about something that's so tragic for so many people. God bless, and I'll see you soon. Upstairs in the sewing area.